Hey, what the fuck is up with you? There are two ways to record the time lapse on a Fujifilm camera. There's the quick and dirty way, and there's the more classical way. The quick and dirty way is basically letting your camera record whatever it is that you're trying to take a time lapse of, whether that's clouds, people, you cleaning the room after recording a video. It is convenient because it's fast and you don't have to prepare the camera in any sort of way. Also, you can stop it and talk to the camera. You see, this is what I'm talking about. You can stop the time lapse and talk to the camera and go back, or you can move it or whatever it is. And there is not too much to do in editing. Also, you just speed it up, 4 times, 6 times, 8 times, 10 times, whatever it is that you feel like you should be speeding it up. The downside of shooting a time lapse by recording the video and speeding it up in post is the fact that, well, it's video and you don't really get the same flexibility in editing as if it was a picture, because it's not a raw file, and also you cannot set your shutter speed, therefore you won't have that same blur in the motion. It's not that cinematic. But if it serves the purposes of your video, who the fuck cares if it's cinematic or not? Anyway, let's move on to the second method, the original and classical one. Basically stitching together a bunch of pictures. Now, how do you do that? On a Fujifilm camera, it's pretty easy. Take your camera, go into the menu, go in the third page of the shooting setting, and you find interval timer shooting. Get in there, you get interval and number of times. Basically, the interval is the time in between every single picture taken. The number of times, it's self-explanatory. It's how many pictures you want to take. Depending on the scene that you're trying to shoot, you will have to choose a different interval. If, for example, you're shooting something that's moving very fast, like people or cars or whatever, you will have to shoot every second or every 2 seconds. If you're trying to shoot clouds, maybe 5 seconds, something that's it's static mostly and it doesn't change that much. You can even take a picture every 20 minutes or an hour, or I don't know, experiment with it, try to have fun. The number of times, well, that depends whether you're shooting in 24 frames per second or 30 or 25 or 50 or 60 or whatever it is that you're using. So if you are shooting in 24 frames per second, basically that means that you will need 24 images to create 1 second of video. So you have to multiply that by the number of seconds that you want the video to last. So let's say you want 10 seconds and you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you will need 24 times 10 makes 240 shots to get a 10-second video. Easy math, right? Things that you need to do before shooting a time-lapse with the camera: get yourself a nice tripod, or you can set the camera on some surface that it's not going to get touched or moved or whatever. Be aware that if you move the camera just a millimeter, you will see it in the final video. Set your camera into manual focus, manual shutter speed, manual aperture, manual ISO, manual everything literally on the camera. Focus on the point that you want to focus in autofocus and then switch it to manual. One of the important things is also the shutter speed. So if you want that nice blur in the motion, you will have to lower the shutter speed. If you want motion in people that are moving on the street, for example, I would go somewhere around 1/15th of a second, 1/10th of a second, even 1/5 of a second, and you will get a nice blur. You can even go with higher or lower depending on the scene, depending on the exposure. If it's overexposed, you will have to crank their shutter speed or close down the aperture. Basically, you take all your pictures, you import them into your editor of choice, whether that is Lightroom or Photoshop or Capture One, whatever it is that you're using. Edit all the pictures. Be aware that you have to edit it in the same way, basically the same preset, the same exposure, the same everything, so that there's consistency in the pictures. And then we export the JPEGs, import them into your video editor of choice, whether that is Premiere Pro, Resolve, Final Cut. Each photo should last 1 frame basically, and then when you put them all together, Premiere Pro, for example, stitches everything in automatic, so it's not a problem. Resolve does basically the same thing. With Final Cut, I've discovered that you have to go through 2 steps, but maybe I'm a noob in that because I recently moved to MacBook, so I don't know. But anyway, you can manage to do that in any way. So after that, put them all together, export, and upload wherever you want it to be uploaded. This was all the theory, but now let's put it into practice. Let's go out and shoot a time lapse. Now this is definitely not the best weather to go out and shoot a time lapse. Welcome to Ireland.
We're setting focus and then manual, then 1/15 of a second, f2.8, it's fine. Interval shooter, we're gonna go every second to 250 shots because we're shooting at 25 frames per second, starting right the fuck right now.
Another thing that I forgot to mention is to turn off your internal stabilization or the stabilization of the lens if there is one. On this X-T3 right here with the 85mm, there's no stabilization, so no need to do that. But with the X-T4, for example, turn off the internal stabilization because it might give you jitters in the camera, because the eyepiece might think that there's something to stabilize when there is nothing because you are using a tripod. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, that's been it for this video. I'm getting the fuck home because it's not the best weather to be in right now. Bye. I'll see you in the next one.